In the previous episode of GTCEFU I acquired an electric blast furnace and used it to smelt some aluminum at a rate of 1 per 5.85 times 10 to the power of 50 Planck seconds. Here is a short summary of everything that happened in between me getting that blast furnace and now. Quite literally the only notable thing from MV to EV was the tungsten processing and epoxy circuit boards, so I will not be going over what happened in that time period. The only thing that matters is that now I had an AE2 system, cheaper circuits and a diesel-powered energy setup, but everything was still extremely slow. And how do you speed something up? You make it larger, and according to the Quest book, once I unlocked tungsten steel, I could make GregTech multi-blocks, which do the same thing as regular machines but are larger. So that's what I would work on, but for GregTech multi-blocks I would need the alloy blast smelter, which would require tons of tungsten steel coils, which were ridiculously slow to make. Luckily I had 2/3 of the coils I needed but they were in my blast furnace, so rather than make 24 coils I would make 8 coils and also unlock HSSG coils to have 16 tungsten steel coils for free. They would also speed up my blast furnace and make it use less energy, which was gaming, and with that planning out of the way, time was for me to begin the 4-hour wait for everything to process. HSSG was quite easy to get as it only required tungsten steel mixed with a bunch of other things that all had EMC. The real challenge was to wait for everything to smelt, and because of that, I built the central monitor, which would keep track of all my machines. While waiting, I discovered the ultimate method for EMC. Before I manually smelted emeralds and put them into the transmutation table, but using the automatic buyer and DMC links I could smelt emeralds and convert them into EMC automatically. The only flaw is that I used red matter furnaces instead of multi-smelters, so it would break every 3 minutes and I could not be bothered to fix it. After a quite considerable wait, I got the HSSG coils. I then made 8 more tungsten steel coils and put them towards the alloy blast smelter. Since the GregTech multi-blocks were of quite a size, I would locate it at a considerable distance from my base to allow me to spam multi-blocks near it. This is the setup I ended up going with. Since I couldn't get air due to not being in the overworld dimension, I used a completely legitimate creative tank to supply air into a vacuum freezer, which would turn it into liquid air to be distilled in a distillation tower for argon and helium, which speed up the recipes in my alloy blast smelter. Though the smelter outputs molten liquids that cannot be solidified the easy way, so I put them through a vacuum freezer with the ingot mold to produce the ingots which are inputted into my ME system. Because of this, I could now get to gamering with the multi-blocks. The first multi-block I made was the mixer to make HSSG even faster. But at that point I realized that diesel simply could not keep up with the energy demands I was about to encounter. A reasonable person would make high-octane gasoline since it's also required for nether stars, but I am too lazy to deal with it, so I just made some manually and slapped a custom EMC value on it. So I went with gasoline instead, which would provide me with more than enough energy. But the process to getting gasoline is a bit more complicated than just mixing fuels. First I would smelt oil sands ore and centrifuge it for oil. The oil would then be distilled for sulfuric naphtha, sulfuric gas, and sulfuric heavy fuel. These 3 things would then be reacted with hydrogen for naphtha, refined gas, and heavy fuel. While that is happening I would turn wood into wood vinegar in the pyrolyze oven for acetone and methanol. Reacting naphtha, refined gas, methanol, and acetone would give me raw gasoline. Distilling heavy fuel gave me toluene, which, when reacted with raw gasoline, would create gasoline which went straight into my turbine for immense quantities of energy. And I used that energy to power a few things. First I made a better centrifuge for iridium, which would be used in later trolling. Then I made a better wire mill and bending machine. Then I made the giant assembling machine and giant laser engraver, which could use distinct hatches for ludicrous quantities of gaming. Speaking of ludicrous, using this assortment of machines I acquired an IV energy hatch. It was quite incredibly simple compared to the hatches before it, but with it, I would need a ludicrous quantity of energy. My turbine setup simply could not generate enough energy no matter how much fuel I supplied it, so the only reasonable decision was to make the LUV material, rhodium-plated palladium. This, however, would require me to assemble a processing chain for any platinum ore ever. The way it worked is boring and will not be described. Anyways, here is me building the processing line.
Not your fault, I felt this rage, just a child about your age. But something drives me to this place. I can see him in your face. You never know the hell I've seen. Don't fear what's come. We can fight off the urge inside. Talking, you're afraid of the devils that come out at night. Let's make this easy. Soon your heart is beats you hate it. No need for sleep tonight. Sweet dreams are overrated.
I am pretty sure I was intended to get palladium from this terribly inefficient method of reacting a byproduct of platinum sludge with a bunch of stuff, but I found a better way where I just electrolyzed sheldonite for platinum and a bunch of other byproducts, and with all of this, I could now peacefully spam LUV machinery. Thanks for watching. Please Greg and GregScribe. If you are wondering where to get this abomination of a mod pack, I have linked it in the description.